I know that it seems like I read a lot of fiction, but I do branch out, I promise I do. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I'm going to take you through some of my favourite non-fiction books. So I do read quite a lot of fiction books, but I've also kind of dabbled my hands into non-fiction. I've read a couple of them over the last few years and there are some that have really stood out to me. Many of them for different reasons than they have with the others. There's quite a few to get through. Let's get started. The first one on the list is This Is Going to Hurt and also The Night Shift Before Christmas, both by Adam Kay. Adam Kay is currently a comedian, but he used to work in the NHS as a junior doctor, and his speciality was midwifery, labour and delivery, obstetrics, however you pronounce that word. That was kind of what he used to do. So this book is laid out in diary format, and it's kind of a recollection of what it was like for Adam when he was working in the hospital, what it was like when he was studying, how he got into the profession. And it also tells you some of the really funny stories about some of the patients that he dealt with. For example, a pregnant woman came in one day with a load of bumps all over her tongue, and she was really freaked out. At the end of the diary entry, he just goes, patient is diagnosed with having taste buds. And I howled laughing at that part. But there are also some very difficult passages to read. Passages where people have lost their children, people have phantom pregnancies, and Adam has lost patience. And he also goes through the heartbreaking situation where he just decided one day, this is too much for me, I can't do this job anymore. And it is kind of equal parts funny, heartwarming, lighthearted, but then also very sad, very reflective, very emotional. And The Night Shift Before Christmas is kind of his Christmas diaries, where he talks about all of the Christmases that he was working, because as a single doctor, you have to work at Christmas time. If you are married or something, you kind of had the option to take it off, but because he wasn't married, he didn't have that option. I really recommend both of these books for the main reason that it will make you so thankful to every single medical profession that we have in this world. It will make you so thankful for all the doctors, the nurses, midwives, x-ray technicians, every single medical professional in the world. It will make you so thankful to know and to have them anywhere in the world. I absolutely recommend both of these books. But I know that Emma from Drinking by Myself sent me a little note of all of the passages from these that are a little bit squeamish and a little bit not gory, but maybe ones that you might want to skip. So if you are going to read this book and you have a little bit of a weak stomach and you don't want to read any of the really gory parts, let me know and I'll send you that one on too. So the next non-fiction book that I'm going to recommend is again too by the same author. So we have Reasons to Stay Alive and we also have Notes from a Nervous Planet, both by Matt Haig. Reasons to Stay Alive is kind of Matt's reaction book to his depression and his experience with suicidal tendencies and suicidal thoughts. And Notes on a Nervous Planet is kind of all about our over-reliance on technology, our over-reliance on social media, and how we can kind of balance that out to kind of get back to a life that we had before all of this came into the world. I really recommend both of these books. Reasons to Stay Alive is actually fantastic if you are also suffering from depression, if you are also suffering from suicidal thoughts or suicidal tendencies. That book will definitely help you to see the good parts of the world. There are kind of like 50 reasons to be thankful or 50 reasons to stay alive at the end of the book, and they are absolute godsend. Every single person can recognize themselves in at least one of them or can associate with at least one of them, and whatever one that it is for you, that is definitely a reason for you to stick around a bit longer. And Notes from a Nervous Planet is also fantastic because it just gives you a little bit of a break from your phone, from WhatsApp, from Twitter, from all of the constant blurring of notifications and everything. It gives you some ideas on how to step back and to cleanse yourself out from social media. I definitely recommend this book if you are kind of a little bit too heavily reliant on social media at the moment. It will definitely make you rethink about your social media practices. Quite a few of the cast of Queer Eye have brought out books, and I have read 2 of them so far. I have read Tan France's book and really loved it, and I have also read Over the Top by Jonathan Van Ness. I think Over the Top is the one that probably stayed with me a bit more because it goes so deeply into Jonathan's background. It explains to him, you know, the homophobic bullying that he had gotten through, how he started out his life as a beautician and as a hairdresser and as a cosmetologist. I think that's the right word. If not, he can let me know and I'll fix it up. But it's pretty much his entire life story, and he talks about his mother's remarriage and how he kind of came to terms with having a stepfather and him leaving his small town in Illinois and moving around the country. Like, I think he has worked and lived in Louisiana, and he has worked and lived, I think, Texas. I don't know why Texas is screaming out to me, but it is. And there's also quite a lot about the audition process of Queer Eye and how he got to know the other 4 cast members. And there's a little bit about what it's like when they're going out filming. If you are a fan of Queer Eye at all, I recommend this one, and I also definitely recommend Tan France's book, Naturally Tan. They are both fantastic books to give you a little bit of an insight about the guys that we see on our TV screens all the time. Gives you a little bit more of a background to them. It tells you a bit more about how they got into their careers, how they got into their businesses. And it just gives you a bit of an escape from the world at the moment. The next couple of books I don't actually have with me because they are either back at home or I've read them as an ebook. So the first one is Am I Doing This Right by Tanya Hennessy. Tanya Hennessy is an Australian YouTuber, comedian. She does kind of a lot of skits about A to Zs of mothers, A to Zs of Australians, that kind of a thing. And her book is laid out as an A to Z. Now, I went into it and I was like, okay, I really, really like Tanya's comedy. I really like her as a person, but I'm not going to let that color what I think about the book. And it absolutely didn't, but I really enjoyed the book at the same time. Because as with Over the Top and as with This Is Going to Hurt, it's like a perfect balance of comedy and lightheartedness and happiness, but it also has some hard-hitting topics, and it also has some kind of emotional parts that you kind of need to sit back and think about after you finish reading them. For example, Tanya talks about what it's like to be a plus-size woman in the entertainment industry and the kind of comments that she would get about that, or the criticism that she would get about that, and how she deals with it and how she kind of doesn't deal with it at the same time. I think it is such an eye-opening book. It is a fantastic way of finding out a bit more about Tanya, and if you haven't heard about her at all, it's a great place to start, and then you can have a look at some of her comedy on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram or literally anywhere that you can find people. So the next book is probably about 100% emotional, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. Paul worked as a cancer specialist in a hospital in the US and then was diagnosed with an incurable lung cancer. And the book kind of chronicles his diagnosis and the kind of a weird way that he went from being the doctor to give the news about that to being the patient who receives the news, and how he kind of came to terms with it, how he worked through his diagnosis, what it was like for him in treatment, what chemo was like. He and his wife tried to have their first child still while he was going through his recovery, and the birth of his first child. During the course of the book, Paul passes away, and the afterword is an entire chapter written by his wife, Lucy. I am not going to sugarcoat it. I read the passage where Paul passes away and where Lucy speaks about that. I read that while I was on my break at work and I sobbed. I genuinely had somebody come over from another table and ask me if I was okay. It is absolutely heartbreaking, but it is absolutely worth a read as well. And so the final book that I'm going to recommend is one by a comedian, but it's not a comedy book. So this is Beyond the Sky by Dara O'Brien. So Dara has a degree in physics from University College Dublin. He wrote this book about space, what is out there, and it's teaching kids all about space. It's teaching them about space travel, what is out there, what kind of planets we share the solar system with, what kind of planets we share the whole entire universe with, about the galaxies, about our own galaxies and other ones. It is fantastic. And there are also a couple of other books that he's written that deal with, I think there's one about what is out there, where it's another kind of a space exploration story. And there is definitely another one, but I can't remember the name right now. But this is the only one of them that I have read so far, and I genuinely really loved it. If you have any kids in your life who are absolutely obsessed with space and space travel, this is the perfect Christmas present for them. And so those are some non-fiction books that I definitely recommend that you should pick up. What are your non-fiction recommendations? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now get on out of here.